Welcome back to the program once again. This is Bottomline Africa right here on KTN News, and because of some unavoidable circumstances, we're not going to have the debate surrounding reproductive health in Africa, but instead we're going to have an equally important debate, and that has everything to do with terrorism and terror-related attacks, which is something that is affecting Kenya as well, in the wake of that sad news we've received from South Africa that the Public Works Principal Secretary Maryam Al Maawy is no more. And I'm going to discuss that with Ambassador Martin Kimani, who is the Director of National Counter-Terrorism Center, who also doubles up as the Special Envoy for Countering Violent Extremism. But for now, let me remind you of Twitter poll tonight, and we are asking you, do you think the protest by Ugandan opposition MPs of an age limit debate is justifiable? Do you think the protest by Uganda opposition MPs of an age limit debate is justifiable? Of course, this question is informed by what happened yesterday and the better part of today in Uganda's parliament. You know the drill. Our Twitter handle is at KTN News. You can as well tweet me at Yusuf Ibra. Remember to always use the hashtag Bottomline Africa, and I'm going to go through some of your feedback within the program. Now, Public Works Principal Secretary Maryam Al Maawy has died while receiving treatment in South Africa. Maryam Al Maawy was rushed to South Africa for specialized treatment after she was injured in the Lamu's Al-Shabaab attack in July this year. Elite security forces rescued the PS from suspected Al-Shabaab militants who had taken her captive in a remote part of the volatile Lamu County. Officers from the Kenya Defence Forces, the General Service Unit and the Administration Police rescued the PS about 45 minutes after she and 5 other top government officials were kidnapped by the gunmen at Milihoi along the Lamu-Mpeketoni highway. At least 4 security officers, including El-Maawy's driver, were killed in the operation following the abduction that marked a significant escalation of the low-level insurgency. The militants have also wedged in parts of Lamu since early 2014. KDF helicopter airlifted El-Maawy to a hospital in Nairobi. Sources said she had a bullet lodged in her left shoulder and burns on her legs. Now, let's go straight to our studio interview now, and we do have Ambassador Martin Kimani with us in studio. He's the Director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center. And of course, the international community has made significant progress in the fight against terrorism. However, in the last several years, terror groups, notably ISIS, have innovated both in their operational tactics and strategic aims, as well as in their methods of fundraising. And tonight, Kenya has lost, of course, a senior government official, as I've already mentioned, to a terror-related attack. And once again, I'm now joined by Ambassador Martin Kimani, who's the Director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center and Special Envoy for Countering Violent Extremism. Good evening, Ambassador. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Yusuf.
Okay, let me just start with this. This is yet another attack that is very painful to the country, I must say. And we understand there has been a little bit of lull as far as terror-related attacks is concerned in the country. But I'm sure Kenyans are asking, what is not happening? Have security officials or forces in these red areas in Kenya fell short of attacking these militants?
Well, thank you, Yusuf, and thank you for having me on this evening. Let me again say we extend our deepest condolences to the families of Principal Secretary El-Maawy, and we really recognize and honor the work that she did for this administration and also for the Kenyan people. I found her to be a very dedicated, a very conscientious public servant, and I worked closely with her when we were working on housing issues from around 2013 to 2014 and 15, and watched her fight for Kenya's interests every day. And I think her family should be very proud of her, even as they mourn her loss. Having said that, Kenya is still challenged by terrorist organizations such as Al-Shabaab. They continue to attack our security forces. They continue to attack civilians. They're attacking infrastructure, self-en masse. They're attacking healthcare centers that the government has built for the Kenyan people, and even schools. And so this campaign continues to cost Kenyans their lives and to degrade our economic prosperity. Having said that, the government has worked very hard to to tamp down on this menace and to try and reduce it as much as is possible. But it continues to be a challenge, Yusuf.
Yes. Now, Ambassador Kimani, reports indicate that, these terrorist groups, of course, continue to vetting and evolving in terms of their strategy, how they fundraise, how they recruit. You being one of the government's policymakers on this issue, are you aware of this, and what are you doing exactly?
Yeah. Well, that is right. Terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab or Al-Qaeda or ISIS are flexible. They change with the challenge before them. They change to find the opportunities that are there for them on the ground. And they basically take a global ideology, a global idea, and try and shape it for local consumption. And so the politics of a country, the politics of a local area, are all ways in which Al-Shabaab and other terrorist groups can find ways to root themselves, to find new recruits, and also to believe that using violence in those local areas can gain them support. And so the main innovation really in terrorism is its ability to shift the focus of its political aims. The aim ultimately is to destroy the world as we know it, to destroy our democracy. But the way there is through the grievances and the political fights that we have with each other. And that is why I think even as Kenyans go through a very intensive and very contentious political period, we always need to remember that we have an enemy who doesn't care whether you are in NASA or whether you're in Jubilee. You are the enemy. Just being a Kenyan, we have an enemy who wants to destroy our country.
Ambassador Kimani, let's talk about Boni Forest. I know it's a security operation zone, but can you at least tell us some of the timelines there? When do we expect the operation to end, and has it been successful so far?
Yes, I think Linda, Boni has been successful. And by successful, I mean it has continually shifted and disrupted Al-Shabaab's ability to have a settled area to carry out their operations. But that does not mean that it has stopped every attack that Al-Shabaab has launched. And Linda, Boni is basically us doing at home what our forces are doing in Somalia, which is to make sure that Al-Shabaab never has a way of settling down, gaining strength, and then using that strength to attack us in an even more significant way.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about, you've talked about this issue being a global problem. We know there is the Boko Haram militants in Nigeria, there's the IS in parts of North Africa, to be specific, in Libya and areas surrounding there. So I know, of course, AU forces are in Somalia, but do you think there's some need to have some concerted regional effort to fight these groups? Because it seems they also have some kind of networks.
Yeah, absolutely, Yusuf. It's clear that the challenge does not respect boundaries. And in fact, that is one of the reasons why countries have sought to defend themselves by actually going across their border to defend themselves, because these people do not recognize boundaries. And that means that the countries of the region and the countries of Africa have to come together. I'm very proud that Kenya is really a leading member in integrating our security responses within the IGAD region and also within Eastern Africa. But this challenge is a formidable one. We have terrorist organizations that over the last 15, 20 years have in fact continued to sprout and grow despite the world's concerted efforts to tamp down on this menace. Now, in Kenya, we are particularly engaged in how can we be more preventive rather than always reactive. And that is what we've put in a lot of work over the last 18 months in doing.
Now, Ambassador Kimani, now that we are seeing some sort of stability in Somalia, how soon do we expect the Kenyan forces to withdraw from that country?
We've committed, our commitment in Somalia is a commitment to the region and to the international community. And as the African Union and the troop contributing countries and our other partners from around the world, the commitment is that we shall withdraw based on the conditions on the ground. That is to say, we shall withdraw when Al-Shabaab is unable to maintain its momentum and its attacks against the Somali people and also in the region. So this is a collective effort and is not just Kenya alone.
And of course, this is a group that has been, this is my final question, of course, and this is a group that is fighting in the name of Islam. Can you please contextualize that for us, bearing in mind that the PS who lost her life is also a Muslim, together with Hanafi, I believe, in that attack?
Yes, absolutely. Al-Shabaab claims to represent Muslims. They claim that their attacks are a defense of Muslims. They claim that they're fighting for Muslim lands. And indeed, they claim that they're fighting for the future of the Muslim religion and the people who practice it. Of course, this is contradicted every day by the way they treat Muslims, because the vast majority of their victims are Muslims. And as we saw with PS El-Maawy, who was a pious person, a good Muslim, they brutally shot her, and she ended up, after some time, dying from that wound. That does not appear to me to be fighting for Muslims. But more importantly, I think over time is this question is very sensitive, because a lot of Muslims feel that they are blamed for the acts of Al-Shabaab. But what we're saying is that there's a strain, there's an idea and an ideology that is embedded and using parts of the religion, using texts and shaping them so as to motivate people to actually be divisive, hateful, and violent. And we think, and we're very proud of the fact that Muslims in Kenya, by and large, resist and reject these groups and their ideology. And we want and encourage every Muslim to join hands with every other Kenyan to actually reject and fight this group so that it never can claim legitimately to represent any religion in Kenya.
Of course, well said, Ambassador Martin, and I'm sure you know most research indicate that these groups are formed because of political reasons, mainly not religious reasons. Thank you very much,
Yusuf,
Ambassador.
If I may, just 1 minute.
Okay, briefly.
I want to say that we have a way of bringing countering violent extremism planning down to the county level. And we want to encourage every new member of parliament, every new governor, to please engage with us, because we want your voice, we want your efforts to come together with the citizens who look up to you, so that together we can fight an enemy who we can beat and who cannot destroy our country, but we need to work together to be able to succeed.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your input. That is, of course, Ambassador Martin Kimani talking to us. He is the Director of National Counterterrorism Center. He also doubles up as the Special Envoy for Countering Violent Extremism. Now, we have to cross over to Uganda shortly, but before that, we're going to take a break because I'm going to link up with my colleague from Kampala, Uganda, Solomon Serawanja, who is on standby now and is going to tell us more on that drama that happened yesterday and the better part of today in Uganda's parliament, where that controversial debate surrounding the presidential age limit is still raging. All that after this very short break, and we'll be right back. Don't go too far.